Of addendum to the previous video that I put out on this channel called Why Was the Past So Great? I want to talk about another passion of mine that seems to be going by the wayside at this point, which is writing letters. I've heard a lot of people tell me that writing letters takes a long time, and that's the reason why it's inconvenient, that's why people don't want to do it. And I've always struggled with that answer to why writing letters is bad, because in my mind, the difficulty is precisely what makes it more appealing. The fact that I do have to sit down and handwrite or typewrite a letter, provide my signature, provide a strong sense of kinderness and kinship with the person I'm writing to, that passion, that authenticity that must be communicated in the letter, I think is part of what makes them so charming. Because when you have a pen pal and you're only getting a letter once a week, and they're only getting a letter once a week, you kind of have to update them on everything that happened that week. It's not like with a friend you talk to every day when you're texting them. It's more of a expressive form of talking to someone. You're expressing all of what happened and you have more to say, and you can be more creative with how it's said. It's not like something is just being said at the spur of the moment. You have time to think about it and give these more passionate rants and provide these little touches with drawings on the letters or a specialized signature. And these little touches make it very special. But it's also the fact that when you do receive the letter in the mail, something comes over you, a kind of excitement, a feeling that, wow, I have it now. Whereas with texting and Discord and these other apps, which, I mean, it's no secret that I hate Discord, but with sending people messages as opposed to writing letters, the satisfaction that's received out of waiting for your pen pal to reply back for a week, sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes a month, is completely taken out, because when that rarity is removed, you become less appreciative of what you're receiving. And I think that is one of the biggest problems, is that when you take something away from someone and you're only giving it to them on a more rare basis, when it's not given to them all the time, they're less likely to forget about it, to say, oh, well, I don't really have very much gratitude for this because I take it as a fact of life. I think most people don't appreciate when they drink water, because water is just something they drink every day. It's something that's everywhere in first world countries and everyone has access to it. Everything's sanitized, so why would they feel gratitude for drinking water? It's just a fact of life. And I think texting has made the written form of speaking to people become a fact of life. Most people have a cell phone, most people have a way of communicating on it, and most people have their friends on it. And so the sort of charm and satisfaction that one would receive from having received the letter, from the rarity from which that letter would be sent to you, the time scale that it was placed on, has been all but removed at this point. It's not really there anymore. And I like that. I like, even when I'm ordering something, having to wait a week for the order to come into the mail, when you finally walk over to the mailbox and pick it up out and open the thing, it's like a surprise. It's like a present, because you had been spending all this time waiting for it, and now it's finally there. It's an event. It's a special occasion. You can't make events out of things you do every day. You just can't. And I think the lack of personalization that's in text messaging, as well as the lack of density, the lack of in-depth expression that's in place of summarizing your entire week, the lack of satisfaction that's received from getting that authentic piece of mail that you've been waiting for all that time, is one of the other things that has quickly denigrated the kind of satisfaction and the charm that the past had. And I would like to be able to start writing letters again, to typewrite and handwrite my own letters and personalize them and send them to people, to where people can build up a collection of them. You know, I never really got to do this because I didn't send enough letters to end up collecting them to that extent. But I love the idea of something like what people did with Charles Bukowski, is that Charles Bukowski has a book that's a compilation of all of the letters that he had sent people. And it was released posthumously in 2007, I believe. And that book just had, you know, all of the little anecdotes, the little pictures, and these really personal things that brought out his personality, that made you understand him a little bit better, that this was what he was like in private, and these were the personal touches that were going on in his brain. And that mode of expression, the fact that there is a physical artifact, a physical archive of that mode of expression, is something that cannot be replaced. I don't think a lot of these messaging apps are going to stay around because big data is going to cave in on itself. We see with Twitter and YouTube, they haven't been able to turn a profit ever since their conception. They've barely been able to pay for the costs of running these things. And I think a lot of the major messaging apps are going to follow suit. We look now at a lot of the cell phone companies and this kind of thing, and there's a lot of weird corporate stuff going on with big data. And all of that complication that's created by being part of this global financial international internet system is basically taken away by just writing a letter and sending it to somebody. And I think that authenticity, that expression, that rarity, that satisfaction, and that lack of complexity that's ultimately made by having to put up with a system that is not going to archive itself in the same way, where you don't have a physical representation of the stuff you've said, ultimately makes for a system in which you might be remembered less. If people don't have a little drawer where they keep all of the letters that you sent, how is that going to reflect on you after you've died? How maybe someone wants to make a book of Star's letters after I die or something, and I think that would be cool. So that physical archival is something that's very important to me. I mean, I think that's kind of obvious. I had the video Being an Archive. If you want to understand that, watch that video. But letters, I think, are another essential part of life in my eyes. A really enjoyable experience that has been kind of killed by big data, and that's really sad to me. I want to bring it back.